Welcome to Your Next Bold Move. Our show is all about helping you take your next step, whether it's career or relationships or life in general. Hello and welcome to Your Next Bold Move. My name is Wendy Kaplan. Today's show is focusing on maximizing your health, and my guest today is Marcelle Pick. Marcelle is a nurse practitioner, OBGYN, and author and owner of Women to Women Healthcare Center in Yarmouth, Maine. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm delighted.
Such a treat.
Thank you.
So let's start off just by having you introduce yourself and your background. And
I'm an OBGYN and pediatric nurse practitioner, and about 30 years ago became very interested in changing women's health. So we started a practice in Yarmouth called Women to Women, and there were 4 of us. And at the time, no one was doing complementary medicine, and most of the medicine was very traditional. And we were very inspired to find a way to change the healthcare system. And we knew that the conventional world didn't really have everything that we needed. We needed to learn how to balance conventional with the Eastern model, and that's why we started Women to Women.
so talk a little bit about the difference between what you see as complementary medicine. A lot of people don't even know what that means.
Right.
Traditional medicine, you mentioned that just a few minutes ago. Explain a little bit what that is.
The healthcare system that we have is phenomenal for acute problems, and no one would deny that.
Right.
The problem is that we have a lot of chronic illness now, and people aren't getting better. And the way that the traditional world is working is that we have about 5 minutes per patient. And I can tell you personally that I can't figure out what's going on with someone in just 5 minutes. So I actually practice something called functional medicine, which means that I want to understand what's gone on back here to really bring us to where we are today. Most of our new patient appointments are an hour, and that gives me time to begin the process to figure out what is going on with somebody and how can I then motivate them to begin to make some changes.
Let's put a little plug in for your center.
Well, we're in Yarmouth, Maine, and we provide services from regular GYN services. We do colposcopies, we do endometrial biopsies, so we do many of the things that are done in regular offices, but we also are looking at what's your nutrition, what's your story, you know, some of the things that may be actually impacting you with regards to health. We look at stress, we look at how much joy you have, how much happiness, what's your marriage like, what's your family history like. What are some of the issues that are really problematic for you? And then we really begin with our patients to uncover what some of those things are so that they can go away with some ideas about how to make changes, either in small steps or in larger steps, to really provide options for them to be healthy.
So you also have a fabulous website for products, so talk a little bit about that.
So we decided about 10 years ago that we wanted to have an impact on the internet, that we would give lots of free information, which we do, and then also avail women the opportunity, if they thought that there was a particular issue like adrenals, that we would divide or develop a program for them particularly. There's a questionnaire, that they have the information, then they can figure out what they need to do. We also have a hormonal program, we have things for thyroid as well, and we wanted women to be able to at least begin the process of doing some of their own healing.
And the website is?
womentowomen.com.
Great. We were talking about adrenals. Right, so you have lots to say on this subject.
I so have
You've
a lot to
written a
say.
book. Should we start with the book? Let's plug your book.
Sure.
The title is Are You Tired and Wired? So you want to tell us a little bit about the book, and then we can talk about adrenals?
In my practice, I've been working with adrenals for a very long time, and the unfortunate part is if you look at the conventional world now, we do not recognize adrenals as an issue.
So say what adrenals are for even people who don't know.
Sure. Adrenals are 2 small glands. They're the size of small, walnuts that sit on top of the kidneys, and they're the glands that really provide us with the ability to deal with stress every day. So we have to have them, we can't live without them, and we have to have a little bit of stress every day. The problem is that so many of us now have stress 24/7, and the body's built in such a beautiful way that it has a sympathetic nervous system, but it's got the counterbalance, which is our quieting mechanism, parasympathetic, and we don't spend a lot of time in that area. So what's happened over the years is that people are becoming more and more exhausted, or they are waking up with no energy and they can't get to sleep because they're wired at night.
Totally.
Or they're totally fried and they're just so tired. So I decided to write a book about the adrenals to help people understand, number one, that there is a problem with adrenal dysfunction no matter what other people are telling you, and that fatigue after you've had your thyroid tested, after you've had your blood work to make sure you're not anemic, all those things have been ruled out. It's not depression. It might be depression for some people,
right,
but many people are told it's depression, and it isn't. So it's a matter of looking at adrenal dysfunction. So I wrote the book to help people understand that it's a huge issue in our culture. In fact, it's an epidemic. We have so many people that are just exhausted, that need to look at how they can support their adrenals using nutrients as well as lifestyle modification, because we have to make the changes, because the adrenals, if they're not working properly, actually really affect our hormones. The adrenals produce about 50 different hormones, and 30% of our estrogen and progesterone is produced by the adrenals prior to menopause, and then after menopause, 50%. So if we have our adrenals that are producing lots of stress hormones, they're not so able to produce those sex hormones that are so important for us. So that's a really important piece to understand, that everything, indeed, like you said, works together. And when the adrenals are producing too much cortisol, that's an inflammatory hormone. You don't sleep, then the cycle continues, then you wake up, you're exhausted, and it gets worse and worse. Just sleeping can't heal that issue.
So is that the sign to know that you might have an adrenal problem? Like, how do you know?
You know, the question is, if you are getting ready, somebody says to you at night at 7 o'clock, you know, you want to go out to a movie? And you're like, are you kidding me? No, the only thing I want to do is just sit down and try and put my feet up. If you are at an appointment and you're sitting in a chair and you're getting ready to read a magazine, there's sun at the back of you, and you go, oh my God, and you start falling asleep. Those are some cues that things are probably not what they should be. And there's a lot of nutrients that make a difference. Food makes a difference. So
certain foods to eat or certain foods not to eat?
Both.
Both.
So the foods you don't want to have are a lot of sugar and processed foods, because unfortunately sugar turns the same receptors on that cocaine and heroin does. So I would really get rid of sugar, and I would do protein at every meal, and do breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner to keep the blood sugar stable, because if you have adrenal problems, the blood sugar becomes very dysregulated,
right, up and
then you feel horrible. And then for people that can't sleep at night, there's something called phosphatidylserine that's really wonderful to get high cortisol levels down.
Is there a test?
There is a test, and it's a saliva test actually, and it's done by looking at cortisol at 7 in the morning, noon, 4 in the afternoon, and around 10 to 12 at night.
So your practitioner, you'd ask
for
you
would for the saliva test, and there's a couple of labs that do it around the country. Now the really wonderful thing is to know that normally cortisol's high in the morning, so it gives us the energy to start our day, and
so you should
be
wake
low
up
at night.
A little more energetic.
You should, and then as the day goes on, it gets a little lower. But so many people have the spikes in it, and that's when they sometimes after lunch feel exhausted. And the motivation for me writing the book, because there's other books out there about adrenals, was really, why am I seeing those same people? I get them better, and then they're back. I get them better, and they're back. Because so many of them are doing the same patterns over and over. I was going to say habits, right? Totally habits. But it's also patterns, you know, and I really talk about this in my book. If you're younger and you learn the pattern of perfection,
you're in trouble.
Perfectionism, you're in big trouble.
Right.
Because it's learning about why did you develop that pattern to begin with. Your job then is to learn how to become less of a perfectionist, understanding that every time you're saying that to yourself, oh my God, I got to do it over, all of those things can actually affect the adrenals. So
grateful to have you here. I think the work that you're doing and the knowledge that you have is so important for people to know, both men and women. And if anybody needs health care support, medical support, I highly recommend Women to Women, and certainly also the website for those who want an additional resource. You've just had a chance to hear Marcelle Pick, nurse practitioner and owner of Women to Women, talk about ways to keep yourself healthier. And I'm hoping it gave you information that you will use to increase your own well-being. In addition to the resources and ideas shared with us by our guests, you can go online to our websites and join our community for some free support and inspiration. And we can be reached at visionquestconsulting.com and themagicparties.com. A big thank you again to Marcelle, our guest, for being here today. And thanks to our listeners. You are meant to go forth in the world to use your gifts and talents.